Did you know that in some federal censuses, they actually included dead people? On purpose. It's true. The 1850 through 1880 censuses, plus a special one in 1885, had a special schedule called a mortality schedule. And the purpose of that mortality schedule was to list the people who had died in the previous 12 months. Why would they do that? Back in the mid-1800s, the concept of public health was starting to become a thing. But unfortunately, a lot of the states weren't yet keeping death records. Well, before the 1850 census, someone had the bright idea, why not get at least a little bit of information about the people who have died in the last year? This gave the government and public health officials at least a basic bit of information. These mortality schedules that were created as part of those censuses can be a real bonus for us as genealogists. These mortality schedules might be the only, quote, official death record that a person might have. Mortality schedules are supposed to record the deaths in the 12 months before the official census date. And the official census date for the 1850 through 1880 census was June 1st. So the 1850 mortality schedule, for example, should include the deaths from June 1st, 1849 through May 31st, 1850. So what's on these mortality schedules? The 1850 and 1860 mortality schedules are pretty similar. They include the person's name, their age, sex, color, and if they weren't white, it would indicate whether they were free or slave. It would also indicate if the person was married or widowed. It gave their place of birth, their month of death. Now remember, this is going back from May 31st of that particular year to June 1st of the previous year. So in this entry for Melville Barker, where it says that he died in September, that's going to be September of 1849. We also have information about the person's occupation, their cause of death, and the duration of whatever illness or disease it was that they died from. In the 1870 mortality schedule, we get two more pieces of information. There are columns to check whether or not the person's parents were foreign-born, but we also get a column to indicate the household in the regular census that is giving the information. This can be really helpful in our genealogy research. That can help us tell whether or not that person in the mortality schedule is the person we're looking for, or if it's just someone who happens to have the same name. I found this useful in my research recently as I was researching Medal of Honor recipient Thomas Hawkins, who was a veteran of the 6th U.S. Colored Infantry. I had seen some information that he had died early in 1870, but there wasn't really anything official. So I looked for him in the 1870 mortality schedule. There's a Thomas Hawkins in the 1870 mortality schedule of the 2nd Ward of Washington, D.C. But how do I know that that's the Thomas Hawkins I'm researching and not someone with the same name? Well, I can see that this information was given by someone in the household 2527. So when I go to the regular part of the 1870 census and go into the 2nd Ward of Washington, D.C., and look for household 2527, I see that household is comprised of Thomas's mother-in-law, his brother-in-law, his widow, and his son. So yes, I'm confident that that Thomas Hawkins in the 1870 mortality schedule is the Thomas Hawkins that I've been researching. We get even more information in the 1880 mortality schedule. In this one, we get the place of birth of the deceased's mother and father. There's a section that asks if the person lived here but died somewhere else, or if the person died here but lived somewhere else. So really, in theory, a person could appear on two different mortality schedules. And if you do find your ancestor in that situation, make sure that you're looking in both locations. What about that 1885 schedule that I talked about? There actually was a very limited federal census taken in 1885 in Colorado, Florida, Nebraska, the New Mexico Territory, and the Dakota Territory. even though it's limited to those 5 locations, if you have ancestors living there, it's definitely worth looking at. If you're getting value out of this video, go ahead and hit that like button. That really helps YouTube spread it to more people who would find it useful. I sure would appreciate it. Thanks. So now you're probably thinking, Amy, these records are awesome. Where do I find them? Well, it depends. Before the National Archives was even a thing, the Census Bureau was trying to figure out what to do with these records. So they actually offered these mortality schedules back to the individual states. Some of the states were like, yeah, we'll take them back. And the other ones were like, not so much. Well, the ones that ended up staying at the Census Bureau, some of those actually ended up at the Daughters of the American Revolution Library in Washington, D.C. Others got transferred to the National Archives after the National Archives became a thing. But there are records that are still held by the individual states, usually in a state library, state archive, or state historical society. Some of the mortality schedules have actually been digitized and put online. There's a large collection on Ancestry and some scattered ones on FamilySearch. Down in the description, there's a link to an article I did that has links to different mortality schedule collections on Ancestry and on FamilySearch. A word of caution if you're using the collection on Ancestry called U.S. Federal Mortality Schedules 1850 to 1885. That title kind of makes you think that they have all of them, and they don't. So what you want to do before you start searching in that collection is go over to the right-hand side where it says Browse this collection. First, choose the year that you're interested in. Let's say 1870. Then select the state that you're interested in. Let's say I'm interested in Indiana. I can see that this collection does not include the 1870 mortality schedule for the state of Indiana. So in this case, now I want to start contacting either the Indiana Historical Society, the Indiana State Archives, the Indiana State Library to see if I can track down those mortality schedules. Census records give us so much information about our ancestors. And in this video up here, I show you how you can pull out even more information from these valuable records. Happy researching!